hello everybody. A warm welcome once again to the island of Mallorca. My name is Richie Prior, as you know, and I'm really pleased. I'm in the centre of Palma on a very warm day, but I'm in a beautiful hotel. But I'm also with the world famous chef, I'd say probably. Well, you're very famous here in Mallorca. You're very famous in England, but you are Marc Fosh.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So I need to know. Well, I think not only me, but a lot of people need to find out a little bit more about you. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Kent.
Okay.
And then I kind of moved to London when I first started cooking when I was 17. And so I cooked in London for about 9 years, and then I went to France, and then I ended up in San Sebastian in northern Spain. And now I've been 26 years here in Mallorca. So it's
okay. So whereabouts in Kent first?
Just outside Maidstone.
Okay. It's a nice part of the world.
Yeah, it was a nice place to grow up, I think, and generally, it was a nice part of the world, and I was lucky, I think, as well. I found out fairly soon after I decided that I wasn't good enough to play football and I wasn't going to be a rock singer, that I could concentrate on cooking, really.
So how did cooking come about? How did it come about? Was your mother or father a good cook, or you?
No, it was fairly accidental. I got a job when I was a kid washing up at weekends in a restaurant.
Okay. And
little by little, the guys would ask me to peel potatoes, peel onions, and then chop this and do this. And so little by little, they were asking me to help out doing things. And I really liked the camaraderie. I liked the teamwork aspect of it. And after a while, I felt really comfortable in the kitchen, and then I decided that was what I wanted to do. So it was totally accidental.
And you worked in the UK first before you moved to France?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. In London?
Yeah, I worked in London. I was very lucky that I started in a very good restaurant in Mayfair called the Greenhouse, and then from there I went to the Capitol Hotel just behind Harrods in Basil Street, and then I was at the Carlton Tower. And so it was a very good sort of training, good grounding initially. But I think really started to discover my passion and my own kind of feeling for food when I moved to Spain, to be honest. I think it really opened my eyes to a different kind of style of cooking, away from cream and butter and heavy sauces and those classical French things, which are great to learn. But once you discover olive oil and a slightly lighter touch and stuff like that, for me it was, I knew it was kind of the road that I wanted to follow.
San Sebastian, beautiful part of northern Spain.
Mm-hmm.
What was different about that from here?
I think in those days, we're going back obviously a little while, it was a little more cut off, I think. There was still, ETA was still quite prominent in those times, and so there wasn't too much tourism. But there was wonderful gastronomy, and it was supported by the local people of the Basque Country as well. They were incredibly passionate about their food. Everybody went to the Michelin starred restaurants. Even the postman would talk about going there. They'd save up their money to support these restaurants. And the passion they had for their ingredients and their culture and their food was unbelievable and quite inspiring in lots of ways. So San Sebastian for me was a great time. I initially was going to stay for 6 months, ended up being there for 3 years.
Right.
And then was given the opportunity to come to Mallorca and open the kitchens of Reed's Hotel years ago in Santa Maria. So.
Which is where I first met you. You might not remember this,
no.
But I actually stayed at Reed's.
Okay.
Yeah, I did, and I had one of your, what do they call it? It was like a tasting menu.
Okay, yeah.
A
Degustación.
Yeah, Degustación. Yeah, it was like 7 courses,
yeah.
And you had a fantastic maitre d' there, whose name escapes me, who was fantastic with the wine.
Right. Yeah.
And we had I remember we had a different wine with every single plate,
Sure.
which basically meant that we didn't really manage to walk very quickly back to our room. Reed's was beautiful. I loved Reed's.
Yeah, it was a wonderful location, and it also was an exciting time. It was fairly unusual, and also there weren't too many hotels in the middle of the country side. In those days, most of the sort of posh hotels were on the coast. So it was quite groundbreaking in a lot of ways, no? And after a little while, after a few years there, we'd managed to win ourselves a Michelin star. And
So this was the first Michelin star you won. You did. You didn't do anything in San Sebastian. The first time you did it was here.
Yeah, sure.
Now I'm right in saying that you are the very first and still the only Englishman to win a Michelin star in Spain.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's any great claim to fame,
I think
but
it's fantastic.
it is true. Yeah, so it's nice.
Okay, so for the uninitiated like me, how do you get a Michelin star? What do you have to do in order to gain a Michelin star?
First of all, you have to cook really well, I think, and consistently well. I think consistency for Michelin is so important, and so you can't just be good on one given day. You have to be good every day. I think also it helps if you can create your own style, so you're not just copying someone else's food, you're actually pushing forward and trying to create and cooking from the heart, and just making sure that there's quality every day, and I think that really it's fairly simple in lots of ways, but to have that consistency day in, day out is the hardest thing.
And what do? Do they come in unannounced, or do you actually know they're coming?
No.
Okay.
They will visit unannounced. Very occasionally, after they've paid the bill, they will announce themselves and ask maybe to see the kitchen, to talk to you. But 9 times out of 10, they'll just pay their bill and be on their way, and you won't know they've come. So at least in that sense, you can relax. You're not too worried, and you're just focusing every day on your customers and your clientele and making sure they're happy. And I think it's not a great thing to focus too heavily on Michelin and these kind of things. If you focus on your job and making sure your customers are happy and making sure your quality's there, everything else falls into place at the end of the day. So for us, it's just about finding great members of staff who feel as passionate as we do, and then follow our philosophy through.
And the first one you got was in Reeds, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how did you find out? How did this all come about?
We kind of didn't know until the guide came out, so we weren't warned before. So to be honest, I think there was probably 2 or 3 years before that when I'd felt we deserved one and we were at that level, and it didn't come, and it was a little frustrating for a couple of years. And so when it eventually came, it was just a nice, it was a sense of relief in some ways, and a sense of pride that we'd achieved what we set out to achieve. And but once you get there, then you have to keep pushing forward, because you can't stand still. So as soon as you, it's really a nice thing. Every year you're reassessed. Every year you have to win the thing. So it's not like you're given the star and it stays with you. Every year you're reassessed, and you have to gain that star every year. So you have to keep pushing forward. You have to hold the line and make sure that your quality is maintained every year. And the day you stop pushing forward as a chef and as a restaurateur is the day you might as well close your doors. So I think that these kind of things are good to motivate you. It's good to motivate your team, but they're not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you know within yourself what you're doing, and that you're doing a good job, and that you're cooking the best food you can, and that you're pleasing your customers, and they come back time and time again.
I imagine probably one of the most important things is what you kept saying we. So I imagine the team around you is more important than anything, right?
Yeah, sure. There's starts obviously with myself and Iris, my wife, and then we kind of make sure that that the team is like a family for us, and it is really all about the team.
Because you're in quite a small space, aren't you? So you've got to be able to get on. I mean, I've watched a lot of sort of chefing programs, and obviously they're very small. There's a lot of shouting, a lot of banging of plates and pots and pans and everything else. Yeah. But it's all for the same good. You're all looking to strive to make sure that whatever plate you're putting out there, that person who sat down, who's paying that bill, is going to enjoy that meal.
Yeah, you're all working towards the same goal, and I think that as long as your team, they know what vision you're looking for, they understand it, they respect what you're setting out to do, and they share that vision, then it's a very, very strong it's a strong thing to have in a team. You know, and we all know that teamwork at the end of the day is what makes anything work.
It's important. It's important. So, Reeds, you finished Reeds.
Mm-hmm.
What happened then? Where did you go?
Well, I opened here 12 years ago. Really, at that time, it was another little crisis, in Spain.
Right. Would have been what, about 2008 then, 2009?
Yeah, exactly. We opened at the beginning of 2009.
Okay.
So, and I initially called the restaurant simply Fosh. And the concept was really to have great food, but in a slightly simpler way. To be honest, I'd kind of gotten a little bored of maybe the stiffness of what we were doing before and the stuffiness, and we kind of stripped everything down initially. So we had no sommelier, we had no maitre d', we just had bottles on the table, you poured yourself. We stripped everything back to the basics basically, and also we could keep the price point quite accessible as well. So we cooked great food for a great price. And luckily, the restaurant was very, very busy from day one, and we had a great response from the local clientele and from our clientele that been following us for a while. And little by little, with this restaurant, we've kind of gone on a journey. We've kind of gone full circle because now we're kind of back where we were, I think, initially. In some ways, because we weren't really focusing on Michelin stars here. I think initially I said as well to Michelin that. It wasn't really our focus, and but they gave us a star anyway after a few years. So, and I think we'd kind of decided that we wanted to push the restaurant again to be a slightly more gastronomic restaurant. Lunchtimes it's still very casual. It kind of has the philosophy that we started from day one. No tablecloths, a little bit stripped back, $29.50 for a 3-course lunch for a Michelin restaurant. That's incredible.
It's
value.
very good. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, very good.
I think in Spain we're one of the certainly one of the cheapest Michelin lunches you can find anywhere, and so that was good for us. And I think that in the evening we kind of then started to do more tasting menus. We pushed it on a little bit more, tablecloths. Now we have a wonderful sommelier. We have a wonderful restaurant manager. And we have more of a team. And so the restaurant's grown a lot over the last 12 years, but in a really positive way and in a really natural way. It hasn't been forced in any way. I think we've just kind of generally started to grow and move the restaurant forward.
You've diversed away from just the restaurant as well, though, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
You've done things like airline menus, I seem to recall.
Yeah, I worked with Lufthansa for a while, and that was a really, really interesting project because I had no idea of how airline food is prepared and what what process it needs to go through before it gets to the final customer. So that was really interesting. And then we've done kind of more casual restaurants. We've kind of opened and closed, I think, 3 restaurants over the last few years, but we've always kind of come back to this is our home here and our basic, it's our bread and butter really. This restaurant, and it's really where your heart and soul is and where your passion is.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to do other things. And we've just now started a consultancy in Palma de Mallorca, which is a beautiful location in Canyamel, in a beautiful hotel.
Right.
So we've opened Plata by Marc Fosh there, and I'm really excited about that for the future. Just because it's a wonderful location, like we're very lucky with this location here. But that's right in front of the sea. It's a beautiful location, and so I think it's important to do other things and to do things that are fun, but we don't forget that this for us is our core.
Your bread and butter.
Yeah.
And so, what is a Marc Fosh food all about? What how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think as soon as I moved to Mallorca, I very much decided that we were going to focus 100% on Mediterranean food. And we we can be influenced by the whole of the Mediterranean, so you can include the Middle Eastern flavors and different kind of flavors from all over the Mediterranean. But a lot of local produce and a lot of local ingredients, but to keep it light, fresh, healthy, and basically focus on natural flavours. So we kind of have a philosophy which we've followed through since day one, where you won't see any wasabi or soy sauce or fish sauce in any of our dishes, so we don't really have any Asian flavours. We try and make sure that our philosophy is maintained and that we stick to Mediterranean food, and that is what our customers are, now expect from us as well. That's the kind of food they love, obviously, and so we're very lucky that we've taken on our customers on this journey too, which is the most important.
And you grow quite a lot of your own produce?
We're very lucky now to have a big piece of land in Son Mia, which is a beautiful finca. And so we've started a project there where we started to grow lots of things. This year we want to actually maybe have a kind of gazebo in the middle where we can actually invite people to have lunches and dinners in the middle of the garden. So it's a project which we're still kind of working on, but it's very exciting for us to be able to grow a lot of our own produce. And the idea is that we can develop that over time. This year, obviously, it's been frustrating in so many ways, no?
Of course.
So we it's kind of set us back a year on our plans for that place. But we definitely want to be able to bring more of the farm to table element to our dining concept.
Mm-hmm. Now you just brought out a cookbook as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Last year it came out in English, in the English market, and in the States. It's called Modern Mediterranean. Again, focused 100% on Mediterranean food. It's slightly more simple than the stuff we do in the restaurant, so you can cook it at home. And then this year the German edition's been released, doing very well in Germany as well. So it's something that I've been writing for the Daily Bulletin. And
yeah, seen them. I've tried a couple actually. And funny enough, I could just say this actually, not just because you're here, but you taught me about all the different hams that you can buy.
Right.
Because I had no clue.
Sure.
And when you walk in, to wherever you go, oh, which one am I going to buy? And you described them in great. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Not that I remember it now, to be perfectly honest, but
it's true. Isn't it? Why is one worth 10 euros a kilo and one worth 250 euros a kilo? No? And the difference is immense, isn't it?
The taste,
yeah, and the taste and the quality, obviously, and everything, and the way it's produced, and then the way it's matured, and things like that. But I think because I've been writing such a long time, I had so much already written down, so many recipes, and so I've probably got enough for 2 or 3 books.
Really?
So I'm going to start working on the next one, and I'd also like to produce maybe a book that's more reflective of the food we do in the restaurant, so it's more restaurant-based food. So we have plans to maybe do 1 or 2 more books.
And how do you... I spoke to musicians about this, how musicians sort of sit down and write a song, right? How do you come up with a recipe? Is it trial and error? Is it just trying things out and thinking, or is it past experience tells you that that's definitely going to go with that? Or
yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both. I mean, it's like when you're a musician. I think you have the notes in your head, and so you can start putting them together in your head before you actually pick up the piano or pick up the guitar and start playing them. So for me, it's about mixing 2 or 3 interesting flavour combinations, and then working from that. And you don't really know whether it's going to be a starter or a dessert or a main course. You're just working on the flavour combinations. So, for example, if you want to have something interesting at the end, you have to start with maybe one very interesting ingredient. So I might start with aloe vera, for example, and think, well, what can we do with aloe vera? And you say, well, aloe vera is quite bitter, needs something sweet, maybe it could work with peas. Peas are very sweet, aloe vera and peas. Needs something slightly salty to counterbalance that. Maybe we could have salt cod, local ingredient. And then all of a sudden you've got 3 ingredients that when you taste them are going to be quite challenging. They're going to attack the taste buds, which is what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have that bitterness, that sweetness, and that saltiness, which is going to be quite interesting. And so that's kind of the way we work on it. And sometimes those flavour combinations, as I say, it could be a cardamom pod, and you put a cardamom pod on the table, and they okay, what can we do with a cardamom pod? What does it go with? It goes with mango, chocolate, chocolate, cardamom. You've got 3 flavours there. And then you can work on, you don't know it's going to be a chocolate soup with mango cardamom sorbet, or a chocolate and cardamom mousse with something else, so at least you can play around with those 3 basic flavours and then decide what you do with them.
Right.
But the interesting journey for us is to start with something interesting.
Okay. Does Marc Fosh cook at home?
I do, yeah. I do a lot of things which I wouldn't never cook in the restaurant at home.
Really?
So I cook quite a lot of Asian food, which
Okay.
I like. So Thai food I like to cook at home. I do a lot of barbecuing at home because I like to slow cook things on the barbecue. And then I do quite a lot of I like to cook some real classics at home as well. Things that maybe more from even English classics, and stuff like that from childhood. And I love to cook a nice roast lunch as well now and again. So yeah, I do enjoy cooking at home.
So we've got to the stage where you've gone from the UK to France to the San Sebastian to Mallorca. You're here now. You reopen the restaurant. Well, obviously, how was the the lockdown for you? How did you get through?
I think it was a really up and down time. I think the initial shock of when it came very quickly for us. I kind of and then of course they were telling you had to close for 2 weeks. So you kind of think, oh, maybe in a couple of weeks you'll be open again, and then 2 weeks goes by, and another 2 weeks goes by. And then it became very clear that this was going to be a lot more long term than we imagined in the beginning. And so it's just dealing with, then you think about, well, what do you do? And how do you, keep everybody, the team motivated, keep everyone together? And it's very, very difficult. I think there were times when we started to doubt whether we'd even open again, but to be honest, we'd kind of got used to our circumstances. It was kind of you need time to actually divulge what's happening to you, and once you actually realise what the situation that you're in, you can start to react to it. And we were very positive about reopening, and I think that we're still trying to stay as positive as we can. Luckily, since we've reopened, a lot of our clientele have supported us, and it's been fairly busy. So we don't know how long it's going to last. We're hoping to get through at least to end of September, October, and but this year we will probably close in the winter.
Would you normally stay open?
We normally stay open.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't see any point in staying open this year. I mean, we normally stay open, but winter's obviously a quieter time for us anyway. But obviously, normally you've had the season, so you've built up a little kind of headwind going into the winter season that can carry you through. This year is going to be much more challenging, and so then it's about, well, okay, what can we do in the winter? So now we're kind of coming up with a new concept where we can concentrate more on delivery service, takeaway food, and so we're kind of racking our brain to see how we do that over the next few weeks. But we'll be coming out with a new concept that hopefully will have legs and have longevity. And so it's just adapting to your circumstances, really.
Now, you like me are quite passionate about Mallorca, passionate about where we live, and
absolutely.
Going forward, you as a businessman, you just said this is going to be difficult. It's going to be tough. It's been tough, and it's going to probably get tougher. What do you think? What help do you think you need, or what help do you think Mallorca needs to take us forward? Because for a lot of businesses, like the business I'm involved in, we're not going to reopen again probably till April next year. I mean, that's tough. That's 18 months for some businesses, not doing anything basically. So, how do you see it?
To be honest, it's so difficult to plan, and it's so difficult to see how it's going to go, because nobody knows how the virus is going to react, whether we're all kind of hoping on a cure. Our initial, and I think everybody's, is just to survive 2020 and then hope that 2021 is going to bring us a better day. And that's basically the philosophy for everyone right now. And it's how do you survive until that. Obviously, we've been helped out by the local furlough situation here. But that will come to an end sooner or later. But it's not really a long-term, thing that can sustain you. I think the businesses obviously have to adapt to see what during the winter you can do. But we're all hoping on a vaccine or some kind of medicine that's going to take social distancing out of the equation. Because the truth is, obviously, in your line and those kind of things, right now it doesn't make any sense. And sometimes I look at restaurants and bars and look at the terraces and I don't think it makes any sense. You kind of think, well, is that the right thing to be doing right now? But life has to go on. So it's finding that balance. I mean, we're very lucky here that we can space tables. It's not about volume for us. So in that respect, we can offer a kind of different kind of safer environment in some ways. But even then, I don't think there's going to be enough business to sustain us through the winter this year. Obviously, when you look at, there's lots of airports cutting back, lots of flights being cut, and that was our lifeline during the winter months. And even though it wasn't enough to make us probably financially viable during the winter months, it still gave us enough hope to be able to stay open and keep the team together. You could have a quieter spell where you're planning for the next season and you're working on new dishes or whatever it might be. But at least your team are together and you're maintaining that unit. No? And I think it's a real shame when the business closes for the winter season, and then I think it's a drain on everybody. It's a drain on Mallorca. It's a real shame that we still haven't managed to work out how we can get more winter tourism and how we can improve that situation. We keep talking about it. We're getting there in some ways, but I still think we've got such a lot to do, and I don't really understand why. It's a real conundrum. You kind of think we have everything here in Palma as a city, as a great winter destination.
Agree.
Great restaurants, great hotels. It's a beautiful city. It's right on the sea. We have great weather. Why can't Palma be a 12-month destination for people? Just very bizarre. But that's why we need people like you coming up with ideas.
Well, I'm trying. Funny enough, I'm writing this week. I am actually writing about. This is one of the reasons to come and talk to people like you is just to garner some ideas. And I think you're right. One of the big things about what's changed Palma for me, I've lived here 30 years, is definitely gastronomy. Definitely. I mean, there's so many great restaurants here.
Yeah, when I opened 12 years ago, I felt on my own in Palma almost, and then since then, there's so many restaurants that have opened, great restaurants. There's now a really nice gastronomic scene in Palma, which we didn't have really before. We had a lot of, maybe a few tapas bars and sort of traditional restaurants. But we didn't have this buzzing kind of gastronomic scene that we have now. And so that's one of the great things about Palma, obviously. And then there's so many great hotels that have opened in the city, which we didn't have either before. Over the last 10 years, there's so many now fantastic 5-star hotels that have opened that are really cool places. So we have everything. We just need to market it in a better way, and we need to stay open.
Yeah, that's the big key, because being an island, the only real way you can get here is on an aeroplane. Right, you can get here by boat, I know, but not many people can get on a boat to come here. Exactly. It's the aeroplane. It's the most important thing, isn't it? So let's see what happens what happens in the winter. Now, a little birdie told me that you're a West Ham fan.
I am a West Ham fan, a very passionate West Ham fan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was very lucky that my grandparents lived in the East End, and so bought me a season ticket every year, and so I used to go to the Upton Park when I was growing up, and be shoved in the chicken run, and and grew up watching Bobby Moore and you know, all these great players. And Billy Bonds and Trevor Brooking, that was my kind of era when I was growing up, you know, and Frank Lampard Senior in those days, balling up and down. Even Harry Redknapp I saw play, you know, towards the end of his career at West Ham. But yeah, I love my football, and I do go to games here now and again as well in Mallorca and watch the games. I was lucky enough to be at last year's game when they went
playoff game.
Yeah, the playoff game was
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing. And are you a fan of the new stadium?
Not particularly. No, I think that when it first opened, I was kind of like, oh, it's really lost. The old stadium was a bit of a disaster in lots of ways, but it had this amazing atmosphere. And then the new stadium took a bit of time. I think I was impressed, obviously, to see the stadium full last year for the playoff game, and the atmosphere that it created was fantastic. But unfortunately here, you know, sometimes you go to a game, you might go to a Real Madrid game, and it seems like 80% of wanting Real Madrid to win, you know, so it's kind of a weird sensation sometimes. You feel like you're playing away from home when you're playing Barcelona or Real Madrid. Yeah. Because most Spanish people are either Barcelona or Madrid, and they would be their local team would be their second choice. Yeah, you know? That's true. Which is a shame. It doesn't happen to us in the UK, obviously. I couldn't ever imagine having any other passion than the team you're born with and growing up with.
And the same for West Ham, new stadium?
Yeah, again, it's lacking a lot. You know, I mean, obviously, Upton Park was such a fantastic stadium. You could have that amazing sound and amazing atmosphere. And I think we've lost a lot of that. Obviously, it's a much more comfortable environment. It gains in some ways. But again, if the stadium's really rocking, and you know, it does create a certain amount of atmosphere. But I do miss the old stadium, to be honest.
And just to wrap this up, then, your ideal meal. Mm-hmm. You have a starter, a main course, and a sweet dessert. What would be Marc Fosh's ideal meal?
Okay, I love, and I mean, as a starter, well, it's a tough one. I do love something nice and healthy and clean, like a gazpacho, something like that. If it's a nice homemade gazpacho, raw ingredients, very, very healthy, very, very simple. And then I would have maybe as a main course, my favourite dish is probably a simple roast chicken. I just love a simple roast chicken. We actually had a restaurant here called Missió, and our kind of speciality was a roast chicken. And we put lots of kind of ras al hanout and Middle Eastern herbs, and we marinated it for 24 hours and then roasted it and served it whole. And I love to do that home still. Just a great way of cooking chicken. And as a dessert, what would I have a dessert? I mean, it has to be something chocolate, unfortunately. Really? Yeah, a bit of a chocoholic. So I guess the classic Michel Brass chocolate fondant, which is a shame now. It's such you see it everywhere. But this dish is originally by a chef called Michel Brass, you know, the Coulan. You know? Right. And it's just a fantastic dish. Chocolate fondant, can't beat it.
And wine? Because Mallorca wine has come on a bundle, hasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're so lucky here with Mallorcan wine. There are so many interesting wineries opened over the last 10, 15 years, and also experimenting with different kind of grape varieties and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, there's so many great local wines to try, you know. So I'm happy with white or red, you know. I don't mind. But wineries, a wine that I could really recommend. I love Ribas, Can Ribas in Conseil, and I love their red. We actually have it as our house wine here, and I just feel so comfortable recommending it to people just because it's always consistently good. So Can Ribas red.
Brilliant. Now, for those who don't know, tell everybody exactly where this restaurant is, where we're sat now.
Mm-hmm. We're right in the middle of Palma, so we're in this kind of old town in Palma. We're in Calle Missió, so we're sort of, literally 50 yards from the Ramblers or 50 yards the other side from San Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a little street, so it's quite difficult to find if you don't know where it is.
I did find it a bit difficult, I'll be honest, but I used my little sat nav.
I actually thought before we opened, I used to walk outside and look up and down. I think no one's going to find this restaurant. What am I doing? But luckily, from day one, it's been busy, so we can't go in. Touch wood, it carries on that way.
Yeah, listen, just use your phone. Just use your phone. It was easy. It was easy to find. If you know where Olivar Market is as well, it's literally across the back here, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can park there in the market, and it's literally a minute and a half walk from the market. So.
And you're open?
Well, this year we're closing on Sunday and Monday, so we're opening Tuesday to Saturday, lunch and dinner.
Okay.
And as I say, we are going to keep pushing, keep fighting to stay open. Hopefully there's business to be had, and hopefully we'll see that Mallorca will get through this little by little, which it will. We'll come back, and I'm sure next year we can start to all rebuild and move forward.
Fantastic, Mark. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Appreciate it.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.